It's there's a thunderstorm outside, bro. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I don't like lightning and I don't like thunder. And it's thundering outside. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Michelle and welcome to my channel called Michelle the Mystic. In today's video, I wanted to share with you guys the 5 different books that helped me get through my spiritual awakening, helped me get even on the path of a spiritual journey and to start my spiritual awakening process. So if that's what you guys are interested in finding out about some book recommendations, then stay tuned for the rest of the video. Alright, so I'm going to be going in chronological order, not in order of like my favorite book or ones that were most impactful for me. I'm just going to do chronological order of like when I got the books and how I started reading them. All of them were extremely impactful for me, but this is basically how I got started on my spiritual journey. A series of books that led me to revelations and led me to look up things online and do my own research. I didn't start out just looking stuff up on Google because like you can't really trust a lot of things, their sources and where they come from and who's even writing them. So I feel like books are a great start, great foundation, especially because they're written in physical form and people buy them. You can check out their publications and their history of the author and all that kind of stuff. So the first book was actually given to me by my mother, who is extremely religious. So I was surprised that she even had a book like this, but it's called The Missing Link. It's a book on philosophy and spirit, and it's written by Sydney Banks. So this book is really interesting because it's kind of written in like poetry format, or like the way that, if you guys can see that, she writes this book. It's like not a novel and it's not really like a self-help book. It's more of like what I would describe like a wisdom book. So it's like these beautiful, authentic, simple ways of thinking, mindsets, and understandings about the world and consciousness and the way that humans operate is like so beautifully boiled down into these simple sentences that are really just like mind-blowing. So that's like how I would describe like this book, because I didn't know what to expect. My mom gave this book to me. She's like, I think you would like this. And it says Reflections on Philosophy and Spirit. And so it's kind of like a take on psychology, philosophy, but in terms of spirituality and like higher consciousness. And when I say that it's written so beautifully, it's like the author really gets to the main point of so many things in life are actually really simple and humans just complicate them because that makes more sense for us. When things are hard, when things are difficult, they must be complex. They must be hard to understand. But in reality, a lot of the truths in life are so simple. And that's what's beautiful about this book, because you read it and you're like, I kind of know that, or I've heard this before, but the way that it's written is just so profound because like these simple things are actually the truth. So this book takes a look at the perspective of humanity and puts it into 3 different principles that are the missing link for the philosophy of life for humans. And the author talks about these different principles and how they fit into the duality of life, how we seek enlightenment and what that means, spiritual teachers. It's just a beautiful book that I would recommend, because sometimes if I'm feeling low, like I'll just reach to this and read it almost like as if it was like a poem or just like a sort of pick-me-up, because you don't have to like you can read it's kind of short. You can read the whole book start to finish in like an hour or 2, and it's just a beautiful way to reframe your mind. So I would recommend this book to anybody who is interested in reading more about philosophy and spirit and that kind of stuff. So yeah, highly recommend this one. Thanks, Mom. All right, the next book I'm going to talk about is Super Attractor by Gabrielle Bernstein. It has an obviously better cover than this, but I took it off because it's just her face, and I think it's kind of weird when the author just has their face, because it's like I'm reading a book about their face. But anyways, So it just looks like this, but it's called Super Attractor. So I would honestly say this was one of the books that pretty much set me on my spiritual path. The last book was really intriguing to me, but I didn't have anywhere to go with it and anything to sort of like follow up with it as well. Basically how my spiritual journey started is it was the middle of COVID, the pandemic was happening, and I was obviously very affected by it, and it was hard to sort of deal with those things. And I started listening to more podcasts that were like self-help related. My favorite podcast is On Purpose by Jay Shetty, and he invites a lot of different speakers on, and he invited Gabrielle Bernstein. Gabrielle Bernstein. And she talked about her as a spiritual teacher and the things that she's learned. And in that podcast, she mentioned this book called Super Attractor. And I was intrigued by what she was saying in the podcast. So I was like, I'm going to go buy her book and read it and see what it is. And honestly, it is not a profound book, but it is a really great introduction to anyone who's interested in learning more about spirituality, because this book basically talks about how to become a super attractor in terms of manifestation, like how you can become the person that you want to be so that the things that you want in your life basically are attracted to you. That's the idea of manifestation, which is really highly popular right now. But I was just like, I never bought a book or really learned how to manifest things. So I was like, it's the middle of COVID, I need something to do. So I bought the book, and I would say it's a really good book for people who are interested in just starting in their spiritual journey, because she does a really great job of introducing the reader very gently and kindly to these concepts that are already prevalent in the spiritual community. So, and she doesn't force an opinion on you. She doesn't say like, oh, like this is my beliefs and about God and spirituality and this is what you need to believe. She's very gentle in introducing these topics, and says in the book, if you don't align with those things, if you don't resonate with those terms or even the things that I'm saying, like the direct words that I'm saying, you don't have to call it universe, you don't have to call it God, you can call it love. Like, she does a really great job of introducing the reader slowly to these topics, and then what she does is give you guys the tools to figure out how to navigate your spirituality and your emotions. So she talks about the emotional guidance scale and how to sort of, if you're in more like negative like a negative cycle of thoughts, how to get out of that. And so she teaches you these kind of small but basic but very powerful tools to sort of take more control of your mind and use it to think more powerful, positive thoughts so that you can become a super attractor and so that you can manifest things into your life. And so the reason this book was so powerful for me and impactful for me was because this is where I first learned about the concept of spirit guides and having a spiritual team and having a guardian angel and angels that work with you. This book was the first introduction I had to spirit guides, spirits, and angels, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I love the idea, and in the book she also teaches you some meditations as part of the tools that you can start using to help reframe your mind and think more positive thoughts. And so she did a meditation, or she wrote out a meditation on how to create contact, or how to connect with your higher self, or how to connect with your guardian angel. I actually did do the meditation, and I connected with my guardian angel, and I learned her name, and I learned more about her, and it was just so beautiful that I remember after the meditation was over, I just felt so much love. I felt like I was being hugged in a bubble of love, which I never felt before, and I didn't even know that meditations could be used to like contact and communicate with like spiritual beings. And so that was my first experience, and I remember it was the morning time and the sun was beautifully shining into my room, and I went downstairs and I sat down and I was like, Mom, I just met my guardian angel and I learned her name, and I felt so much love from her. And my mom just sat there and was like smiling and was like, wow, like that's beautiful. And she was asking me all these questions, and we had a conversation about angels as well. And so this book was just really great for me as an introduction to spirituality. Basically, this book talks about the universe and how the universe always has room for you, it always has your back, always is wanting to create abundance for you. And that's how, once you vibrationally align, use the tools in the book and other tools in your life to vibrationally align with your higher self and with the universe, that's when you can start creating abundance. You can start manifesting beautiful things into your life and become a super attractor. So that's what this book is about. Definitely recommend. All right, the next book is called Becoming Supernatural: How Common People Are Doing the Uncommon by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and it's a New York Times best-selling author. So this is what it looks like. It's beautiful. I actually got this as a gift for Christmas. My friend and I were in a bookstore, and she was like, you go pick out a book for me and I'll go pick out a book for you, and then we'll buy it for each other, and that'll be our Christmas gift. So I picked this book out and I was like, I really want you to buy this for me. It's amazing. So basically, this book is by a doctor. It's written by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he is a scientist and epigenetist and biologist or neuroscientist who has very strong ties to the spiritual community, to mystical experiences and all those things. And basically what this book is kind of like a scientist wrote how spiritual experiences happen and how mystical experiences happen, and performed studies on thousands of different people while they were in meditation retreats, while they were doing the things that he's developed, the meditations, the skills, all those things. They studied those, they created brain scans, they plotted those, they measured energy and vibration. And he has an insert in here, and literally in the book, he has like an insert that shows the brain scans, like that. Like, it's just bizarre. Like, this book literally was like, I was sitting in my reading chair reading it, and I remember like I had to stop every couple pages because it was blowing my mind, like the things that he said. And he breaks them down because he is a scientist, and he doesn't like dumb it down so you guys can understand. He like tells you exactly how it happens, but then explains it in a way that like you actually understand what's going on in the human physiology of your body. Because basically this book talks about the power of meditation and the power of your thoughts, and how those affect your past, your present, and your future, and how that actually affects your physical body and creates disease in the body. So the basic concept of this book is that your thoughts are so extremely powerful that when you think them repeatedly in a certain way, it causes what they call dis-ease in the body, which is basically disease. So it can physically manifest physical symptoms in your body. And he gives many examples of people who had these horrible, different diseases or different things that sort of culminated into their life. They were healthy before, something happened that changed their mindset, that changed their perspective, and then they went into getting all of these diseases and all of these illnesses. And then, they came to him and they learned these techniques, and they started healing literally from the inside out. So it's basically a book on how to heal your body, but also it teaches you an extremely powerful way to use your thoughts to create the most healthy version of yourself, and how you can become like supernatural just based on your thoughts, through the power of meditation, through the power of using energy and all these kinds of things. If you guys know anything about like the chakra systems and stuff, the third eye, he proved what organ the third eye is related to, and how you can cultivate that, and how you can like develop that and develop your third eye based off of this organ that's literally in your brain. Like, it's insane. Highly recommend reading this book, even if you are not ill or you're trying to heal a disease or illness, because I'm not, and like I feel like this is just a really powerful book that if something were to happen to me or to my family members, then I can give them this and see how it works, because there are so many different things that he talks about that are just beautiful in here. All right, the next book is called Light is the New Black by Rebecca Campbell. I think it's Campbell. I can't read. Obviously I've marked it up. So this was the next book that was like really powerful for me. I found this based off of another YouTuber that I watch, and she recommended this as a great spiritual book. It's sort of a newer style of writing and a newer book in general, but this was really powerful for me because it was the first time that I fully like 100% connected with the author and her message and what she was saying. There's a thunderstorm outside, bro. I'm afraid. I don't like lightning and I don't like thunder. And it's thundering outside. Anyways, this book basically is written by this beautiful Australian woman who has a spiritual awakening of her own, and then she's called to write this book and to deliver these messages. It's also kind of written in a different way. She has like several like mini topics on each page. This book is geared towards people who are working through a spiritual awakening and understanding your soul's calling and your soul's mission and where your soul comes from. So I resonated so much with this book and what the author was saying and her message behind it, because she basically identifies as a starseed. So for anybody who does not know what that term means, I didn't know what it meant before I heard it. Basically, there are two different types of souls that we sort of know of. There are earth souls that incarnate here and are involved and were created and reincarnate in our solar system, and they incarnate here on Earth. There are other souls that were created and incarnate in other star systems, like the Pleiadian star system, the Arcturian star system, and that has a lot of other implications as well that I learned about. But basically, I was just starting to come to terms with what that term meant, and then I read this book. It's basically like letters to the reader on how to find your spiritual path, how to open up to the universe, how to start living more in your calling, and what that looks like for each person. And she just shares so much love through her messages and through her words and her stories as well about her experience. And it's just a beautiful book that you can pick up and read any section. You don't have to read it all the way front to back. You can kind of just read a bit that is relevant to you that day or something that you need to hear that day. I had a pretty crazy experience the first time I read this. I was outside of a coffee shop and I didn't really know what to expect when I was reading it, but I was literally sitting there and I was smiling the entire time reading this for like an hour, 2 hours, sitting outside, because I just felt so much inner resonance with these messages and her path that I was like, finally, somebody feels how I feel. Somebody went through this process. It's so loud, the thunder. Somebody went through this process before me. Somebody knows how this goes. Somebody knows what they're talking about. And I just felt so much incredible love coming from this book. I truly think that this book raised my vibration that day and for the rest of the week like tenfold. Like, I think it opened up all of my chakra systems, especially my heart chakra, because I was buzzing with energy, and I felt like a complete paradigm shift in the way that I was thinking and my thoughts, and I felt so much love and guidance from the universe. It was just really profound and very beautiful. So that was my experience with this book. And the last book that I picked up on my spiritual journey this far is called The Four Agreements, a Toltec wisdom book by Don Miguel Ruiz. I think that's how you say it. But as the title says, it's a wisdom book that is pretty old and it's pretty famous too. So basically, this is a really beautiful, simplified version of the wisdom that has been passed down by the Toltec tradition. This book gives people today in our society, living in our culture, powerful mindset shifts to make to live a happier life just in general. It's not a super spiritual book that like the other ones like talk about angels or talk about the third eye and all that kind of stuff, but it gives you the tools to sort of reframe your mind so that you start living happier, you start understanding other people from a different perspective, understanding yourself and giving yourself more compassion. So one of the first agreements, I think they call it, is to be impeccable with your word. So what this means is like to say what you mean and mean what you say. Don't lie to people. Don't go behind their backs. Like, if you live a more authentic life all the time, and even to yourself, you're just more authentic. Oh my God. if you just live a more authentic life and be true when you speak and be careful when you speak, then that's going to translate into a lot of different ways in your life. So this is a wisdom book, and people need a lot of wisdom nowadays. So highly recommend buying this one. It's pretty cheap. Do yourself a favor, read it in one day, and you'll be good to go. So that is all I have for you guys today. Those are the 5 books that made a huge impact on my spiritual journey, that helped me to learn about spiritual things and to start living in a higher vibrational state and get into higher states of consciousness as well. So those were my book recommendations for you guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and that you maybe want to go out and buy some of them and learn more about these things that I talked about. So thank you so much for watching.